Imagine, if you will, a machine born from the crucible of the Cold War, a black apparition that soared higher than any adversary dared dream, and faster than a rifle bullet. A ghost in the sky. It defied gravity, defied conventional physics, and time and again, defied the very missiles launched to bring it down. No other aircraft in history has captured the imagination quite like the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, an engineering marvel that remains to this very day the fastest and highest-flying air-breathing manned aircraft ever built. It wasn't just a plane. It was a defiant roar in the face of an existential threat, a testament to American ingenuity, courage, and an unyielding commitment to freedom. This is the story of the Blackbird, a legendary titan of the skies that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible, and then simply left those boundaries in its hypersonic wake. In the shadow-drenched halls of Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works, a clandestine division led by the brilliant Clarence Kelly Johnson, an audacious vision took flight in the early 1960s. The world was a chessboard then, and the stakes were nothing less than global survival. The Soviet Union, a monolithic power, loomed large, and the need for eyes in the sky, unseen and untouchable, was paramount. Our existing reconnaissance assets, like the U-2 Dragon Lady, while groundbreaking, had proven vulnerable, tragically underscored by the downing of Francis Gary Powers in 1960. The message was clear. America needed a new breed of spy plane, one that could not merely evade detection, but outrun any threat, anywhere on Earth. The genesis of the Blackbird began with Project Archangel, a bold endeavor to create an undetectable spy plane. Kelly Johnson and his team, operating with a secrecy that bordered on myth, worked tirelessly, churning through 11 successive designs in just 10 months. They were not just building an aircraft, they were forging a weapon of information, a shield of intelligence. The A-12, the pioneer in stealth technology, with its significantly reduced radar cross-section, emerged from this intense period of innovation. It was a marvel, but the U.S. Air Force soon recognized the potential for an even more formidable derivative, a larger, heavier version, capable of carrying more fuel and a crew of 2, complete with advanced reconnaissance systems. This was the birth of the SR-71, a designation deliberately chosen to echo the pre-1962 bomber series, lending it a sense of continuity and strategic weight. In July 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson, seeking to counter criticisms about America falling behind in the arms race, made a stunning revelation to the world. He unveiled the existence of a high-speed, high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, initially referring to it as the A-11, then the RS-71. But General Curtis LeMay, the formidable Chief of Staff of the Air Force, had a different vision. He lobbied fiercely for the SR, Strategic Reconnaissance designation, preferring SR-71, a name that would ultimately stick. The media, given transcripts with the earlier designation, created a minor stir, suggesting the president had misread his own notes. But the name, SR-71 Blackbird, became synonymous with American technological dominance, a legend even before its full capabilities were understood. It entered service with the United States Air Force in January 1966, a dark, sleek silhouette ready to patrol the very edge of space. To achieve its mind-bending performance, the Blackbird demanded materials and construction methods that were literally ahead of their time. 85% of its structure was crafted from titanium, a metal notoriously difficult to work with, but essential for withstanding the extreme temperatures generated at Mach 3+. Lockheed's engineers faced unprecedented challenges. They discovered that washing welded titanium required distilled water, as even the slightest trace of chlorine from tap water could cause corrosive damage. Cadmium-plated tools, common in aerospace manufacturing, were forbidden, as they too induced corrosion. At one point, a staggering 80% of the delivered titanium was rejected due to metallurgical contamination, a testament to the unforgiving nature of this cutting-edge material. The sheer heat generated by sustained Mach 3 plus flight was almost unimaginable. The Blackbird's skin, especially on the inboard wings, wasn't smooth. It was corrugated, designed to allow for thermal expansion without buckling. On the ground, the fuselage panels fit loosely, giving the impression of a somewhat crude construction. But this was by design. As the aircraft accelerated to triple sonic speeds, the airframe would heat up, expanding by several inches, sealing the gaps and achieving a perfect aerodynamic fit. This thermal expansion also meant that the aircraft, when cold on the ground, would notoriously leak its specialized JP-7 fuel. Ground crews, accustomed to seeing puddles beneath the parked Blackbirds, knew that the seals would only fully engage once the aircraft was screaming through the stratosphere, its skin glowing with frictional heat. The crew, a pilot and a reconnaissance systems officer, RSO, sat in tandem cockpits, their lives shielded by an outer windscreen made of 3 layers of glass, with cooling sections in between. The exterior of that windshield could reach a staggering 600 degrees Fahrenheit during a mission. Their specialized tires, manufactured by B.F. Goodrich, incorporated aluminum and were inflated with nitrogen, each costing $2,300 and typically needing replacement within 20 missions. Landing the Blackbird was an art form in itself, requiring speeds of over 170 knots, followed by the deployment of a drag parachute to reduce landing roll and preserve the precious brakes and tires. Every aspect of the Blackbird was a bespoke solution to an extreme problem. Even before the term stealth became commonplace, the SR-71 was a pioneer in signature reduction. Its distinctive shape, with flattened, tapering sides, was engineered to reflect radar energy away from its source. Lockheed engineers added chines, sharp edges running along the fuselage from the nose, and canted the vertical control surfaces inward, further reducing its radar cross-section. Special radar-absorbing materials were integrated into sawtooth-shaped sections of the aircraft's skin, and even cesium-based fuel additives were employed to lessen the radar visibility of its exhaust plumes. While Kelly Johnson later acknowledged that Soviet radar technology advanced faster than the early stealth efforts, the Blackbird's wing area of 1,800 square feet was made to appear as a mere 110 square feet on radar screens. It was an impressive feat, a testament to the nascent science of making the impossible invisible. But the Blackbird's true invincibility lay not just in its reduced radar signature, but in its sheer, unadulterated speed and altitude. Flying at Mach 3.2, at altitudes exceeding 85,000 feet, it existed in a realm where no enemy fighter could reach, and no surface-to-air missile, SAM, could effectively track or intercept. If a SAM launch was detected, the standard evasive action wasn't a desperate maneuver, but a simple, audacious command: accelerate. The Blackbird would simply outpace the missile, leaving it to expend its thrust far below, an impotent streaking arc against the vast emptiness of the upper atmosphere. No SR-71 was ever shot down by enemy action. It was the ultimate expression of speed is life. The distinctive chines, initially designed for stealth, proved to be an unexpected aerodynamic boon. Lockheed's aerodynamicists discovered that these sharp edges generated powerful vortices, creating additional lift. This allowed for a reduction in the wing's angle of incidence, enhancing stability and reducing drag at high speeds, which meant the aircraft could carry more fuel and a heavier payload. These vortices also created turbulent flow over the wings at high angles of attack, making it harder to stall and significantly reducing landing speeds. The chines acted like leading-edge extensions, similar to those found on agile modern fighters, unexpectedly boosting the Blackbird's performance and contributing to its legendary stability at extreme velocities.
At the heart of the Blackbird's phenomenal performance lay its unique propulsion system, two Pratt & Whitney J58 afterburning turbojets. But to call them mere engines would be a disservice. This entire power plant, the inlet, the J58 engine, and its ejector nozzle functioned as a single integrated system, a heat pump, in the words of its designers. At Mach 3.2, in maximum afterburner, the engine itself contributed only 17.6% of the thrust. The inlet, a marvel of variable geometry, provided a staggering 54% of the thrust through ram compression, effectively transforming the turbojet into a ramjet at high speeds. The ejector nozzle contributed another 28.4%, making the Blackbird a true hybrid, a revolutionary concept that blurred the lines between conventional jet and rocket science. Operating these engines at the edge of physics was fraught with peril. The most infamous challenge was the inlet unstart. If the spike in the engine inlet, which moved forward and backward to control airflow, was incorrectly positioned, the shock wave would become unstable, shooting forward outside the cowl. This violent event would often extinguish the engine's afterburner, creating a sudden, asymmetrical thrust that would cause the aircraft to yaw violently. Pilots described it as being hit by a sledgehammer, their helmets often striking the canopy. These sympathetic stalls could even affect the opposite engine, leading to rapid counter-yawing and a terrifying rough ride. Early analog control systems struggled to keep up, but after extensive wind tunnel testing and computer modeling, Lockheed installed a digital system, the Digital Automatic Flight and Inlet Control System, DAFIX, which dramatically reduced these harrowing events, making the Blackbird safer, though never truly tame. The Blackbird ran on a specialized fuel, JP7, so stable it was difficult to ignite. To start the engines, a highly volatile chemical, triethylborane, TEB, was injected, igniting on contact with air and producing a characteristic eerie green flame that often marked the beginning of a mission. JP7 served not just as fuel, but as a critical heat sink, absorbing heat from the cockpit and electronics before being fed into the roaring engines. The aircraft would typically take off with a partial fuel load to reduce stress on its delicate tires and brakes. It wasn't because, as widely believed, the fuel tanks leaked excessively on the ground, though they did drip, a consequence of the thermal expansion design. Instead, it was a safety measure, ensuring that even with one engine failure during takeoff, the Blackbird could still lift off. For its long-duration, high-speed missions, in-flight refueling was not an option. It was a necessity. Supersonic flights rarely lasted more than 90 minutes before the pilot had to rendezvous with a tanker. This required specialized KC-135Q stratotankers, modified with high-speed booms and unique fuel systems to transfer JP7 to the Blackbird. The delicate dance of refueling at high altitude, with both aircraft pushing their envelopes, was a testament to the skill of both crews. In the Blackbird's cockpit, a peripheral vision horizon display, a barely visible artificial horizon projected across the entire instrument panel, provided critical subliminal cues to the pilot, guiding them through this precise and dangerous ballet in the sky. The SR-71's mission was reconnaissance, and its sensor suite was cutting edge. It carried a sophisticated astro-inertial navigation system, ANS, a direct descendant of systems developed for intercontinental ballistic missiles. This ANS, housed behind the RSO, continuously tracked stars through a quartz glass window, correcting inertial navigation errors with celestial observations. Its blue light star tracker could see stars day or night, feeding data on 61 celestial bodies into its digital computer. This system was so precise that it could limit drift to just 1,000 feet off the direction of travel at Mach 3, an astonishing feat of accuracy for its era. The Reconnaissance Systems Officer, or RSO, was the nerve center of the Blackbird's intelligence gathering. While the SR-71's two-person cockpit meant it couldn't carry the A-12's massive single camera, it boasted an array of advanced sensors. Optical/infrared imagery systems provided wide area coverage with ITEC's operational objective cameras and optical bar cameras, offering horizon-to-horizon views. For closer scrutiny, Hicon technical objective cameras could be directed up to 45 degrees left or right. Side-looking airborne radar, SLAR, later replaced by the more advanced ASARS-1, painted detailed ground maps. Electronic intelligence, ELINT systems, housed in the chine bays, meticulously analyzed electronic signal fields, identifying points of interest in real time. Beyond its speed, the Blackbird relied on a complex array of electronic countermeasures, ECMs, to defeat enemy threats. These systems, known by various designations like Systems A, B, C, and so on, were tailored to specific missions and expected threats. Major Jerry Crew, a former RSO, recalled using a jammer to confuse surface-to-air missile sites tracking his aircraft. But crucially, once his threat warning receiver indicated an actual missile launch, he would switch off the jammer. Why? To prevent the missile from homing in on the very signal he was emitting. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, played at altitudes and speeds that blurred the lines between reality and science fiction. Operating at 80,000 feet, where the sky turned black and the curvature of the Earth was visible, demanded specialized life support. The crew wore full-pressure suits, custom-made by the David Clark Company, designed to provide enough oxygen above 43,000 feet and protect them in the event of a high-altitude ejection. Even in the cockpit, which could be pressurized to 10,000 or 26,000 feet, a heavy-duty cooling system was essential. With the aircraft's external surface reaching over 500 degrees Fahrenheit and the windshield interior a scorching 250 degrees Fahrenheit, heat exchangers dumped this thermal load into the JP-7 fuel before it was combusted. For long missions, pilots and RSOs had specialized food and drink delivered through tubes and straws into their helmets, a bizarre yet necessary aspect of sustained flight in such an extreme environment. The SR-71's operational life began in earnest on March 8, 1968, when the first Blackbirds arrived at Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, Japan. These deployments, codenamed Glowing Heat, quickly transitioned into reconnaissance missions over North Vietnam and Laos under the codename Black Shield, later Giant Scale. On March 21, 1968, Major Jerome F. O'Malley and Major Edward D. Payne flew the first operational SR-71 sortie. For 2 years, the Blackbirds averaged 1 sortie a week, steadily increasing to nearly daily flights by 1972. Over the course of the Vietnam War, North Vietnam fired approximately 800 SAMs at SR-71s. Not a single one found its mark. Pilots reported missiles passing as close as 150 yards, a chilling testament to the Blackbird's ability to evade, or simply outrun, death. While deployed at Okinawa, the SR-71s and their crews earned an enduring nickname from the local Okinawans, Habu. This referred to a venomous pit viper indigenous to the island, a creature whose sleek, dark, and deadly appearance resonated with the mysterious, supersonic aircraft that patrolled their skies. The moniker stuck, becoming a badge of honor for the men who flew these incredible machines. The operational highlights were staggering. Over 3,500 mission sorties, 11,000 mission flight hours, and more than 2,700 hours spent flying at Mach 3 or faster. Only one crew member was ever killed in a flight accident, a testament to the rigorous training and robust design, allowing the rest to eject safely or evacuate on the ground. From 1976, the Blackbird's gaze turned towards the Iron Curtain, operating from RAF Mildenhall in the UK. 2 primary routes became legendary, one along the Norwegian west coast and up the Kola Peninsula, meticulously monitoring Soviet Navy bases, and the other, the infamous Baltic Express. This route threaded a narrow corridor of international airspace between Sweden and East Germany, then reconnoitered along the Soviet Union's Baltic coast. The combination of a fixed entry point and a predictable route allowed both Swedish and Soviet forces to scramble interceptors. Swedish radar stations often observed Soviet Su-15s, MiG-21s, and MiG-23s attempting to intercept, though only the faster Sukhois had even a remote chance.
The greater threat came from the formidable MiG-25 Foxbat interceptors stationed in East Germany. The Swedes, meticulously observing these aerial chess matches, noted a consistent pattern. A single MiG-25 would often close to within 1.9 miles behind the SR-71 at 62,000 feet, just below the Blackbird's cruising altitude of 72,000 feet, before disengaging. This regularity led the Swedes to interpret it as a simulated shoot-down, a chilling psychological game played out in the thin air of the Cold War.
Maintaining their neutrality, the Swedish Air Force would dispatch their own JA-37 Viggens to intercept, limited by a top speed of Mach 2.1 and a service ceiling of 59,000 feet. Viggen pilots would attempt frontal attacks, relying on their advanced avionics and ground-based radar to achieve a missile lock, often in the narrow international airspace between Öland and Gotland. Out of 322 recorded Baltic Express sorties between 1977 and 1988, the Swedish Air Force claimed 51 successful missile locks. However, with a combined closing speed of Mach 5, these intercepts were predicated on the Blackbird maintaining its course, a luxury its pilots rarely afforded. Then, on June 29, 1987, a dramatic incident unfolded that remained classified for over 3 decades. An SR-71, on a Baltic Sea reconnaissance mission, suffered a catastrophic engine explosion at 66,000 feet. Rapidly losing altitude, the crippled Blackbird turned towards the Swedish coast, inadvertently violating Swedish airspace. 2 unarmed Saab JA-37 Viggens, on exercise nearby, were scrambled. Upon identifying the aircraft as an SR-71 in distress, the Swedish pilots, instead of pressing an intercept, made an extraordinary decision. They formed an escort, protecting the damaged American aircraft from potential Soviet threats, which, as declassified NSA data later revealed, included multiple MiG-25s ordered to shoot down or force the SR-71 to land. A MiG-25 had even locked a missile onto the Blackbird, but the Swedish escort, a silent act of bravery and solidarity, prevented any engagement. Over 31 years later, in 2018, the 4 Swedish pilots involved were finally awarded medals by the U.S. Air Force, a long overdue recognition of their courage and professionalism.
Despite its unparalleled capabilities, the SR-71 was officially retired by the USAF in 1989. The reasons given were primarily political. The plane was deemed too expensive to operate and maintain, and its role, it was argued, could be filled by evolving reconnaissance methods, like satellites and unmanned aerial vehicles. However, many within the Blackbird community, including former commanders like General Richard Graham, vehemently disagreed. They argued that the SR-71 offered unique intelligence capabilities that no other platform could replicate in the 1990s. The issue, they contended, was Pentagon politics. Graham suggested that a new generation of USAF generals, lacking the intimate understanding of the Blackbird's value, saw it as a redundant asset, and perhaps even a bargaining chip to secure funding for newer, top-secret programs like the B-2 Spirit bomber. The intelligence the SR-71 gathered, primarily consumed by the CIA, NSA, and DIA, was not considered as valuable to the Air Force itself. Dick Cheney, then Secretary of Defense, famously claimed the SR-71 cost $85,000 per hour to operate, a figure hotly disputed by those who knew the program. Opponents inflated the support cost, while proponents argued the true figure was closer to $300 million annually, a small price for unmatched strategic intelligence.
One of the primary justifications for retirement was the Blackbird's lack of a real-time data link, meaning its imagery and radar data had to wait until the aircraft returned to base. This was a critical deficiency in the age of rapid information. However, advocates argued that attempts to upgrade the SR-71 with such a system were actively stymied by the very factions in the Pentagon and Congress who sought its demise. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. By preventing necessary upgrades, they could then claim the aircraft was obsolescent, conveniently clearing the path for their preferred programs. Congress, recognizing the Blackbird's irreplaceable capabilities, attempted to intervene. In 1988, they allocated $160,000 to keep 6 SR-71s in flyable storage, ready for reactivation within 60 days. The USAF, however, refused to spend the money. The program officially terminated in October 1989. But the story wasn't quite over. The Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, starkly highlighted the absence of the Blackbird's unique reconnaissance capabilities, prompting Congress to re-examine its decision in 1993. Admiral Richard C. Mack, testifying before the Senate, emphasized the need for a system that could provide a track of what is happening, not just a snapshot, a capability the SR-71 excelled at. Congress, disappointed with the lack of a suitable replacement, successfully pushed for the reactivation of 3 SR-71s, allocating $72.5 million. Lockheed's Skunk Works once again brought the aircraft back to life under budget. These reactivated Blackbirds, now under the 9th Reconnaissance Wing, even received data link modifications for near real-time transmission of ASARS-1 imagery. But the resistance from within the USAF and from UAV developers persisted. In 1996, the Air Force moved to ground the program. Despite further congressional reauthorization, President Bill Clinton attempted to use a line-item veto to cancel the funding in 1997. Though the Supreme Court ruled the veto unconstitutional, the Blackbird's fate was sealed. In September 1998, the USAF permanently retired the SR-71. NASA was the final operator, using 2 Blackbirds as research platforms until their final retirement in 1999. The SR-71's role has since been taken up by a combination of reconnaissance satellites and unmanned aerial vehicles, but none have yet matched its unique blend of speed, altitude, and manned adaptability. The Blackbird still holds the absolute altitude record in horizontal flight at 85,069 feet and the absolute speed record of 2,193.2 miles per hour, approximately Mach 3.3, both set on July 28, 1976. It also holds the speed over a recognized course record, flying from New York to London in a breathtaking 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 56 seconds in 1974, an average speed of Mach 2.72 that commercial airliners can only dream of. On March 6, 1990, on its final flight to the Smithsonian Institution, SR-71 SN 617972 set 4 more speed records, including a transcontinental dash from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in just 64 minutes and 20 seconds, averaging 2,144.8 miles per hour. Senator John Glenn, a true American hero and aviator, addressed the Senate that day, chastising the Department of Defense. Mr. President, the termination of the SR-71 was a grave mistake and could place our nation at a serious disadvantage in the event of a future crisis. His words echo down through history, a poignant reminder of what we lost. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird was more than just a spy plane. It was a symbol of an era when American courage and ingenuity knew no bounds. It was a machine that inspired awe, instilled fear in adversaries, and pushed the very limits of human flight. Its untamed spirit, its black silhouette against the indigo sky, remains an enduring legend, a testament to the men and women who dared to dream of a machine that could fly faster than a speeding bullet, higher than any eagle, and bring back the secrets that kept our nation safe. The Blackbird may be retired, but its legacy, a defiant whisper of Mach 3+, continues to soar in the annals of aviation history.